Why you're always attracted to the wrong people. There's a psychological reason why you're consistently attracted to people who seem exciting but ultimately hurt you, and it has nothing to do with bad luck. Recent studies show our brains are wired to find certain personality types irresistible, even when they're toxic for our well-being. The fascinating part is that these attraction triggers reveal specific things about our own psychological makeup, particularly early childhood imprinting and dopamine-driven reward patterns we might not even realize we have. Understanding this hidden psychology could finally explain why your relationships follow the same patterns and how to break free from them. What happens inside your brain during these attractions might surprise you. The neuroscience behind destructive attraction. Your brain fundamentally changes its structure when exposed to toxic relationship patterns, creating neural pathways that make harmful partners feel more attractive than healthy ones. Neuroscientists have discovered that repeated exposure to unpredictable relationship dynamics literally rewires our reward systems, making us crave the very experiences that cause emotional damage. This process happens where neurons form stronger connections around memories associated with intense emotional experiences, whether positive or negative. The brain cannot distinguish between excitement from danger and excitement from genuine attraction, which explains why toxic partners often feel more thrilling than stable ones. The dopamine reward system plays a central role in this destructive attraction cycle. When we encounter unpredictable behavior from romantic partners, our brains release dopamine in anticipation of potential reward, creating the same neurochemical response seen in gambling addiction. This system evolved to help our ancestors survive by making them alert to uncertain but potentially beneficial situations. However, in modern relationships, this same mechanism makes inconsistent partners feel more exciting than those who provide steady affection. The unpredictability creates a dopamine hit that consistent kindness cannot match, leading us to interpret chaos as passion and stability as boredom. Intermittent reinforcement schedules create the strongest behavioral conditioning patterns known to psychology, and toxic relationships often follow these exact patterns. When a partner alternates between affection and withdrawal, attention and neglect, the brain responds by increasing its investment in the relationship. This happens because intermittent rewards create more powerful neural connections than consistent ones. The brain essentially becomes addicted to trying to predict when the next positive interaction will occur, creating an obsessive focus on the unpredictable partner. This mechanism explains why people often report feeling more intensely connected to partners who treat them poorly compared to those who are consistently loving. Neural pathways formed during childhood create templates for adult romantic attraction that operate below conscious awareness. The brain develops these patterns based on early caregiver relationships, establishing baseline expectations for how love should feel and function. Children who experienced inconsistent caregiving develop neural networks that associate love with uncertainty and emotional intensity. These early formed pathways become so deeply embedded that they guide adult partner selection without conscious input. The familiarity of these patterns makes toxic relationship dynamics feel normal and even comforting, despite their harmful effects. Stress hormones like cortisol and adrenaline can actually intensify romantic feelings, creating a biochemical confusion between danger and attraction. When we encounter threatening or unpredictable situations with romantic partners, our bodies release stress hormones that increase heart rate, heighten awareness, and create physical sensations similar to those experienced during romantic attraction. This physiological response can make toxic relationships feel more intense and meaningful than healthy ones. The brain interprets these stress responses as signs of deep connection, creating a false association between emotional turmoil and true love. Brain imaging studies have revealed distinct activation patterns in individuals consistently attracted to harmful partners. These studies show that attraction to toxic partners involves both heightened emotional reactivity and diminished logical reasoning capacity. The emotional centers of the brain become hyperactive, while areas responsible for rational decision-making show decreased activity when these individuals encounter toxic relationship scenarios. The rational mind frequently loses battles against these deep-seated neural responses because conscious thought processes operate much more slowly than automatic emotional reactions. The limbic system, which governs emotional responses and attraction, can process information and trigger reactions within milliseconds. Meanwhile, the prefrontal cortex, responsible for logical analysis and decision-making, requires several seconds to evaluate situations and generate rational responses. This timing difference means that attraction decisions are often made before conscious thought can intervene, explaining why people consistently choose partners they intellectually know are wrong for them. Trauma bonding creates neurochemical connections that closely mimic genuine love, making it difficult to distinguish between authentic attachment and psychological conditioning. This process involves the release of oxytocin and vasopressin, the same hormones present in healthy romantic bonds, during cycles of abuse and reconciliation. The intensity of these neurochemical releases during trauma bonding often exceeds those found in stable relationships, creating bonds that feel more powerful than healthy connections. The brain interprets these intense chemical responses as evidence of deep love, making trauma-bonded relationships feel more meaningful and irreplaceable than they actually are. The stress response system can become dysregulated through exposure to toxic relationships, creating a cycle where calm, healthy interactions feel foreign and uncomfortable. When someone becomes accustomed to high levels of relationship stress, their nervous system adapts by maintaining a constant state of hypervigilance. This adaptation makes peaceful relationships feel boring or even threatening because the nervous system interprets the absence of chaos as a sign that something dangerous might be approaching. The brain essentially becomes addicted to crisis mode, making toxic relationships feel more natural than healthy ones. Understanding these neurological processes represents the first step toward breaking free from destructive attraction patterns. Awareness of how the brain creates these responses helps separate automatic reactions from conscious choices, creating space for different decisions. The brain's neuroplasticity means that these deeply embedded patterns can change with consistent effort and awareness. However, this process requires patience because established neural networks resist change and will continue to influence attraction patterns until new ones become stronger. These same neurological mechanisms also explain why we often find ourselves most drawn to people who seem just out of reach. The unavailable partner trap. When someone consistently rejects your advances, it can feel as intense as reward anticipation, creating a counterintuitive psychological response where being turned down actually increases their perceived value. This phenomenon occurs because our brains interpret scarcity and difficulty as indicators of worth, leading us to want things more intensely when they become harder to obtain. The rejection triggers dopamine release that enhances our focus on the person who denied us, making them appear more desirable than they were before the rejection occurred. This neurological response explains why people often report feeling more attracted to someone immediately after being rejected, rather than losing interest and moving on. Our cognitive systems automatically equate effort with value, causing us to assign greater worth to relationships that require more work to maintain. This mental shortcut developed as an evolutionary advantage, helping our ancestors identify valuable resources by noting which ones required significant effort to obtain. In modern dating contexts, this same mechanism makes emotionally distant partners seem more valuable than those who are readily available and consistently responsive. The brain interprets the difficulty of connecting with unavailable partners as evidence of their superior worth, creating a false correlation between relationship challenges and partner quality. Anxious attachment styles create a specific vulnerability to emotionally distant partners because they activate familiar patterns learned during childhood. Individuals with anxious attachment experienced inconsistent caregiving that taught them to work harder for attention and affection when it became withdrawn. This early conditioning creates neural pathways that associate love with pursuing someone who pulls away, making emotionally unavailable partners feel more familiar and comfortable than secure ones. The anxiety triggered by an unavailable partner feels like passion because it matches the emotional intensity these individuals learn to associate with attachment during their formative years. Deep-seated beliefs about personal worthiness often manifest as the conviction that love must be earned through suffering and persistence. These beliefs typically form during childhood, when conditional love taught individuals that affection was something to be deserved rather than freely given. The internal narrative becomes one where easy relationships feel too good to be true, while difficult ones feel authentic and meaningful. This psychological framework makes unavailable partners appear more legitimate, because their distance confirms existing beliefs about having to work for love and acceptance. The pursuit of unavailable partners often involves fantasy addiction, where the imagined potential of the relationship becomes more compelling than actual relationship experiences. These fantasies allow individuals to project ideal qualities onto partners while avoiding the reality of their actual personalities and behaviors. The unavailable partner becomes a blank screen for projecting romantic dreams and desires without the complications of genuine intimacy or real-world relationship challenges. This fantasy engagement provides emotional satisfaction without requiring the vulnerability and compromise that characterize authentic relationships. Social media platforms have intensified attraction to unavailable individuals by providing constant visual reminders of people who remain just out of reach. The curated nature of social media profiles allows unavailable individuals to maintain an attractive presence without genuine emotional availability, creating perfect conditions for fantasy-based attraction. Viewing updates from emotionally distant partners triggers the same reward pathways as intermittent reinforcement, keeping individuals psychologically engaged despite minimal actual interaction. The platforms also enable passive pursuit behaviors like viewing stories and posts without direct engagement, allowing people to maintain connection fantasies without facing rejection or reality. Healthy pursuit involves genuine interest in getting to know someone combined with respect for their boundaries and responses, while self-destructive chasing ignores clear signals of disinterest or unavailability. Healthy pursuit includes honest communication about intentions, acceptance of the other person's current capacity for relationship, and willingness to walk away if compatibility does not exist. Self-destructive chasing, however, involves persistent contact despite lack of reciprocation, misinterpreting minimal responses as encouragement, and refusing to accept that the other person has communicated their unavailability through their actions or words. Fear of intimacy frequently disguises itself as attraction to unattainable partners because pursuing someone unavailable provides the illusion of romantic engagement without the risks of genuine closeness. This pattern allows individuals to experience the excitement and emotional intensity of romantic pursuit while maintaining emotional safety through the other person's unavailability. The fear of being truly known and accepted drives unconscious selection of partners who cannot provide deep intimacy, creating a protective barrier against vulnerability. This mechanism lets people maintain romantic identity and hope while avoiding the genuine emotional exposure that intimate relationships require. The pursuit of unavailable partners provides specific psychological payoffs that keep individuals trapped in these patterns despite their apparent futility. Staying in pursuit mode allows people to maintain hope and romantic excitement without facing the actual challenges of relationship building, conflict resolution, or long-term compatibility assessment. The constant chase provides a sense of purpose and emotional intensity that can feel more meaningful than the steady satisfaction of secure relationships. Additionally, pursuit mode keeps individuals focused on external validation rather than internal growth, avoiding the self-examination that healthy relationships often require. The pattern of pursuing unavailable partners often becomes self-reinforcing because it confirms existing beliefs about relationships being difficult and love being scarce. Each unsuccessful pursuit validates the internal narrative that worthwhile relationships require intense effort and that easily obtained love is somehow less valuable. This confirmation bias prevents individuals from recognizing that their attraction patterns, rather than external circumstances, create their relationship difficulties. The cycle continues because the familiar emotional experience of pursuit feels more authentic than the unfamiliar experience of being genuinely wanted and available. Understanding this dynamic is crucial for cultivating self-worth and seeking relationships where genuine appreciation and reciprocity are present. These patterns frequently lead to imbalanced relationships where one person invests more emotionally than the other. Breaking free from unavailable partner attraction requires recognizing these patterns and developing comfort with relationships that feel different from familiar pursuit dynamics. The roots of these attraction patterns run much deeper than conscious choice, extending back to the earliest experiences that shaped how we learn to connect with others. Childhood imprints that control your love life. The relationship patterns you develop during your first 7 years of life create an unconscious blueprint that determines who you find attractive decades later. This critical period establishes neural pathways and emotional associations that operate below conscious awareness, guiding your romantic choices without your knowledge. The brain forms these foundational relationship templates based on interactions with primary caregivers, creating expectations about how love should feel, function, and unfold. These early experiences become so deeply embedded that they feel like natural preferences rather than learned responses, making it difficult to recognize when childhood imprints are controlling adult relationship decisions. Imprint theory explains how early caregivers become unconscious relationship templates that shape adult partner selection. The relationships formed with caregivers during childhood significantly influence the relationships individuals form later in life. This theory suggests that the early bond with a caregiver shapes an individual's attachment style, which affects their approach to relationships, including their choice of romantic partners. The quality of this early attachment sets the stage for how individuals navigate intimacy, trust, and emotional security in their adult relationships. These imprints function like internal maps that guide us toward familiar relationship dynamics, even when those dynamics cause pain during childhood. Sexual imprinting demonstrates how early experiences shape the criteria used in mate selection. A study by Bresson and Damien found that women whose fathers had light eyes showed a stronger preference for light-eyed men, suggesting paternal imprinting in human females. This effect was particularly pronounced in women who reported a positive relationship with their fathers, indicating that the quality of the early relationship modulates the impact of imprinting on mate preferences. This research provides compelling evidence for how even physical characteristics can be imprinted during childhood and influence adult attraction patterns. The brain interprets these familiar patterns as evidence of compatibility, creating attraction to people who replicate childhood relationship experiences. We recreate familiar dynamics even when they caused us pain, because the brain prioritizes predictability over happiness in relationship selection. Familiar relationship patterns feel safe to the unconscious mind, regardless of their actual impact on well-being. The neural pathways formed during childhood become so well established that they create comfort with known dysfunction rather than unknown health. This psychological mechanism explains why people consistently choose partners who treat them similarly to how their caregivers did, even when those treatment patterns were harmful or inadequate. The brain essentially chooses emotional familiarity over emotional satisfaction. Emotional neglect during childhood creates specific attraction patterns toward emotionally unavailable adults because it establishes emotional distance as the baseline for relationships. Children who experienced emotional neglect learn that love comes with emotional unavailability, creating neural associations between romantic attachment and emotional distance. These individuals often find emotionally available partners overwhelming or untrustworthy because consistent emotional presence feels foreign and suspicious. The neglect teaches them that pursuing emotionally distant partners is normal, creating adult relationships characterized by the same emotional starvation they experienced as children. The phenomenon of seeking partners who mirror our most challenging parent represents an unconscious attempt to resolve unfinished emotional business from childhood. The brain believes it can heal old wounds by recreating the problematic relationship dynamic and achieving a different outcome. This psychological mechanism drives people toward partners who embody the same difficult qualities that caused pain during childhood, hoping to finally receive the love or validation that was missing. However, this strategy typically fails because the adult partner is not the original parent and cannot provide the specific healing that the inner child seeks. Unmet childhood needs drive us toward people who cannot fulfill them because the unconscious mind seeks to recreate the original relationship dynamic rather than find genuine satisfaction. The brain focuses on familiar emotional patterns rather than evaluating whether potential partners can actually provide what we need. This creates a psychological trap where individuals consistently choose partners who trigger the same unmet needs that originated in childhood, perpetuating cycles of emotional frustration and disappointment. The unconscious hope is that recreating the original dynamic will somehow lead to different results, but this rarely occurs without conscious intervention. The difference between conscious choice and unconscious repetition in relationships lies in awareness of why we find certain people attractive. Conscious choice involves examining attraction patterns, understanding their origins, and evaluating potential partners based on compatibility and capacity for healthy relationship dynamics. Unconscious repetition involves automatically gravitating toward familiar relationship patterns without questioning their origins or examining their impact on well-being. Most people operate from unconscious repetition, following attraction impulses that feel natural but actually represent conditioned responses from childhood experiences. Attachment theory identifies 4 main attachment styles that are shaped by early interactions with caregivers. These attachment styles influence the types of partners individuals are drawn to and how they behave in relationships. Those with an anxious attachment style may be drawn to emotionally distant partners, often with avoidant attachment styles, in an attempt to recreate and resolve past relational dynamics. This creates predictable relationship patterns where anxiously attached individuals pursue avoidantly attached partners, recreating the same emotional dynamics they experienced during childhood. Healing childhood wounds can completely shift attraction patterns because it addresses the root psychological mechanisms that drive partner selection. Therapy, particularly attachment-based modalities, can be highly beneficial for healing childhood relationship wounds and shifting attraction patterns. By exploring the initial feelings that arise when dating someone unavailable, individuals can identify the subconscious wounds they are trying to heal. This process involves acknowledging and exploring the pain caused by past experiences, which can lead to showing up differently for oneself and cultivating self-compassion. Specific signs that childhood imprints are sabotaging current relationships include consistent attraction to the same problematic personality types, feeling more excited by partners who are emotionally distant, finding healthy relationships boring or uncomfortable, repeatedly choosing partners who cannot meet emotional needs, feeling responsible for fixing or changing partners, experiencing anxiety when partners are consistently available and loving, and interpreting kindness as weakness or lack of authenticity. These patterns often lead us to seek partners who embody qualities that feel exciting precisely because they represent everything we were taught to avoid. The rebel attraction phenomenon. This psychological conditioning creates powerful attraction to partners who embody characteristics that feel forbidden or dangerous in our own lives. Rule breakers and rebels trigger intense romantic responses because they represent psychological freedom from the constraints that govern our daily lives. These individuals embody characteristics that many people suppress within themselves due to social expectations, family pressures, or professional requirements. The attraction to rebellious partners stems from vicarious liberation, where we experience freedom through someone else's willingness to challenge authority and social norms. This psychological mechanism allows us to feel connected to excitement and adventure without taking personal risks or facing potential consequences. The rebel becomes a vehicle for experiencing aspects of ourselves that we have learned to hide or deny. Partners who represent freedom from social constraints appeal to the parts of our personality that feel restricted by conventional expectations. Many people spend their lives following rules, meeting obligations, and conforming to social standards while suppressing their desires for spontaneity and nonconformity. Rebellious partners offer an escape from this psychological cage, providing access to experiences and emotions that feel forbidden or dangerous. The attraction intensifies because these partners seem to possess qualities that we admire, but feel unable to express ourselves. Their freedom becomes intoxicating because it represents everything we believe we cannot have or be. Attraction to rebellious types often reflects our own repressed desires for liberation that we have not found healthy ways to express. According to Psychology Today research, attraction to rebellious types may reflect our own repressed desires for freedom, rebelliousness, and excitement. The rebel partner becomes a projection screen for our unfulfilled wishes to break free from restrictions, challenge authority, or live according to our own rules rather than societal expectations. This attraction can indicate that we have suppressed important aspects of our personality in order to fit into acceptable social roles. The rebellious partner temporarily satisfies these repressed desires through association, allowing us to feel rebellious without actually taking risks ourselves. However, this dynamic creates dependency on the partner to provide experiences that we should be creating for ourselves. Healthy independence in a partner involves self-sufficiency, strong personal boundaries, and the ability to think critically without being destructive or harmful to others. These individuals make autonomous decisions based on their values while maintaining respect for other people and social responsibilities. They can challenge ideas and systems constructively, offering alternative perspectives without causing unnecessary chaos or pain. Destructive rebellion, however, involves breaking rules and challenging authority primarily to create conflict, gain attention, or avoid responsibility. These patterns often stem from unresolved emotional issues rather than genuine principles or values, leading to behaviors that harm both the rebel and their relationships. Stable, Reliable people often feel boring compared to chaotic personalities because chaos creates artificial intensity that mimics passion and excitement. The unpredictability of chaotic partners triggers stress responses that increase heart rate, heighten awareness, and create physical sensations similar to those experienced during romantic attraction. This biological response makes chaos feel more engaging than the steady satisfaction provided by reliable partners. Additionally, stable relationships require us to face ourselves and our own issues without external drama to distract us. Many people find this internal focus uncomfortable, preferring the external stimulation provided by chaotic partners to avoid self-examination. Societal pressures create unconscious rebellion through partner choice by making certain relationship types feel forbidden or socially unacceptable. When society promotes specific ideals about appropriate partners, some individuals unconsciously select rebellious partners as a form of psychological resistance. This rebellion often occurs without conscious awareness, manifesting as attraction to people who violate social expectations about successful relationships. The partner choice becomes a way to assert independence from family expectations, cultural norms, or peer pressure. Psychology Today research suggests that women who choose rebellious partners may be prioritizing short-term physical attraction over long-term emotional support as a form of rebellion against societal expectations or a desire for freedom from social constraints. Shadow psychology explains our attraction to rule breakers as connection with disowned aspects of ourselves that we have learned to suppress. Carl Jung described the shadow as containing all the parts of our personality that we have rejected or hidden due to social conditioning. Rebellious partners often embody shadow qualities that we find both fascinating and frightening within ourselves. The attraction allows us to experience these forbidden aspects through someone else without taking responsibility for expressing them directly. This psychological mechanism creates intense but unstable relationships because we are essentially falling in love with projected parts of ourselves rather than the actual person. Distinguishing between authentic confidence and manipulative charm requires examining whether someone's rebellious behavior serves constructive purposes or merely creates chaos for personal gain. Authentic confidence involves taking principled stands against unfair systems while maintaining respect for other people's well-being and rights. These individuals can explain their positions clearly and accept consequences for their choices without blaming others.